Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Games Video Opportunity webinar hosted by MIDiA Research. My name is Sion Tedessa. I'm the Communications Coordinator for MIDiA Research. Today, we are presenting an idea around games video that we believe can lead to producing incremental revenue for creators and games companies alike. We will start today with a keynote from Karol Severin, our Senior Games Analyst and co-founder of MIDiA Research. And with him, we've got our guest panel, Phil Ranta, the CEO of Wormhole Labs, and Sam Griffin as well, our in-house production associate and Twitch content creator. So this webinar is being live streamed across all of our key social media platforms. So if you have any questions throughout the entire session, please ask the questions in the comment section, and one of our panelists and analysts will be able to answer the questions for you. So thank you so much again for joining us. I will hand it over to Karol now.
Thank you, Sion. Hi, everyone. Great to have you all. Today, we are indeed presenting an idea around games video, and particularly opportunities that we believe can lead to a lot of incremental revenue, both for creators and games companies, as Sion introduced. So over the next sort of 20-25 minutes or so, I'm going to talk through the detail of this opportunity, and we'll talk about, we'll start with a little bit of background. We'll talk about the basic concept of the idea that we are presenting. We'll look at some product examples as to how this all could work. We're going to look at some of the opportunity size estimates for this whole idea. And before wrapping up, of course, we're also going to discuss what types of games companies and creators are actually most suitable for this opportunity. So let's dive in with a bit of background first. Games video is big. We've covered this over and over, but it's important to reiterate because the sheer size of games video consumption underpins the size of the actual opportunity we're going to talk about today. So games-related video viewership is comparable at this point with fandom of well-established genres such as news or anime or reality TV, even though it's only at the 10% consumer penetration, you start seeing the importance and the significance of it in context, right? And at the same time, games video viewing is driven by younger segments. We can see the progression of the penetration across the consumer age groups on this graph. And I deliberately put it next to console gamers to show games video viewing in perspective. And you'll see that for the younger segments, particularly, let's say the 16 to 19-year-olds, games video viewing is at 26%, which is approximately 76% of the amount of console gamers that exist in the whole 16 to 19-year-old segments. And you'll see in the other youngish segments, sort of the 20 up to, let's say, 44, it's also, up to, sort of the 44, it's nearly at 50% of the console gamer numbers still. So this is likely a trend that's going to at least partially age with consumers, so we can expect further growth of games-related video adoption in the near future. So, okay, we've established that games video is big. Now onto the actual concept of the opportunity we want to discuss. When you think about all the value that games video generates, and then think about how that value flows, it becomes apparent that in general, games companies are really using games video largely as a marketing tool, while the video monetization part largely happens on video platforms like YouTube and Twitch. Now, we believe that games companies have an opportunity to create revenue for themselves and creators, additionally to the marketing value they are already receiving from the traditional setup on video platforms. They can do this by building up in-house infrastructures that enable creators to stream from within the game and to offer viewers who own the game a layer of enhanced or premium experiences, which can be paid for via in-game purchases, for example. So in other words, this is about creators being able to reach gamers inside a game and create additional in-game revenues for the game, be it by providing entertainment, educational, or an emotional value to the consumer. And to be absolutely clear, this is not to replicate what video platforms like YouTube and Twitch are already doing. It's not to compete directly against them. Instead, this whole idea is to build up an additional and distinct layer of functionality and experiences for gamers. So it is more about competing around the likes of YouTube and Twitch than going directly against them. And it is also to support the growth of the creator landscape in a bit more of a sustainable manner by improving the unit economics, particularly at the mid-longer tail of the creator landscape. The idea is, whatever creators would stream inside the game could still should be put up on YouTube and Twitch, pending the T&Cs that we'll dive deeper into during the panel as well. However, those who view and stream from inside the game will enjoy essentially an additional level of value. So if you own the game, you'll get a little bit more of an experience. So let me show you a couple of product examples as to how this could work. And the overarching takeaway here is that for this to work, companies need to give viewers and creators reasons rather than just ways to engage. Good news is games companies can provide lots of these reasons. And this includes things like bidding to join their favorite creator directly in the game session, buying items and loadouts curated by the streamer, provided by them, bidding or buying private sessions, tutorials, birthday messages a la Cameo from pro gamers, etc. And you can, potentially for games that are, let's say, rated 18 and where regulation permits, so you could go as far as looking at betting on session winners. Or, if you're looking into sort of the further fetched or the sort of newer trends, it could be things like taking an NFT selfie to commemorate an in-game situation, such as I was in a room with streamer X and I was the first one there. So as you'll see, these are a few examples, kind of, but it's about coming up with features and experiences that would be hard to replicate on video services alone. It's basically about deploying the experiences that are possible for a creator when their whole audience actually owns that game and can take part in that interactive process. And so, the whole idea is kind of geared to producing these incremental revenues, which then can be shared with creators. So this idea does not include monetizing the actual viewing itself through ads, etc., because that would just be simply recreating what already exists on YouTube and Twitch. This is very much a in-game purchase-led idea. So the last thing I wanted to talk about on this slide is where in a game would this type of features sit? And that will very much depend on each individual game, right? But typically the spaces that lend themselves well to this kind of thing are points where interactivity within the game suddenly drops. Those can be things like being in a spectator mode while waiting to respawn, or it can be in the main menu or a lobby of the game. It can be in the halftime break or a post-game menu of a sports game, etc. And for larger companies, actually, which aggregate a large number of titles in a single interface, if you think about things like Xbox or PlayStation, this could even sit in the main menu of the actual device before launching the game and actually operate across multiple titles. So I want to talk about the size of the opportunity and why I believe this should actually be a no-brainer for a lot of companies, at least for a certain type of certain types of games companies and creators. Compared to the traditional games video creator model on the likes of YouTube and Twitch, there are really two things that will be fundamentally different in our idea here, and that will be about reach and monetization. Let's take reach first. The first consideration of a creator who is being persuaded to join an in-game streaming initiative will be, well, sounds cool, but will I be able to reach as wide of an audience as I can on YouTube and Twitch? And the answer is A, you might, especially with the large titles. B, even if you don't actually have to hit the same numbers, because the margin creators could be getting in return for converting viewers to in-game sales is much higher than what they make for what they would make from converting to YouTube views. And C, this opportunity, as we already mentioned, doesn't actually prevent creators from continuing to monetize on video platforms that they've already got set up. And I would actually go as far as say, sort of au contraire, I think games companies will have utmost interest in creators continuing on the other platforms, because the games companies will still want the marketing value and making sure that the word is spread to people who don't yet own the game. However, on the other side, they will have this additional layer where they can provide a better experience to those who already do own it. So further, in terms of audience reach and targeting, our survey shows that, and that's Q3 2021 consumer survey in English-speaking markets, it says that 17% of consumers use YouTube for games videos, compared to 5% using Twitch and 4% Facebook gaming. So there are games out there that can actually compare with those big video platforms in terms of audience sizes, right? 21% of consumers play Call of Duty compared to 17% of people who use YouTube for games videos, etc. So, but more importantly, there is a point I want to make about targeting in games. The targeting for creators could be a lot better inside the game than, for example, our YouTube and Twitch, particularly for those creators who specialize in covering just one, or let's say a small number of titles. As a percentage of YouTube games video viewers will always be will be interested in Call of Duty, but every single Call of Duty player will be interested in playing Call of Duty. And often these people would have already spent on Call of Duty, so much higher chance of converting these players to further spending as well. Which brings me to the second point, and that's around monetization. And I've got one case, just kind of like a back of an envelope estimate for what the games opportunity is and what the creator opportunity is. Let's talk about the creator one first. So let's assume that a creator has an average 10,000 views per day on YouTube, and that's going to earn them perhaps around $10,000 per year, depending on what kind of CPMs you count with, etc. If the creator only just converted 1% of those views to payment of an average $1, it would equate to $36,500 of incrementally generated revenue per year. Then let's say we assume like a 50-50 rev share between the games company and the creator. They could still be looking at over 18,000 incremental dollars per year, which is in itself about 80% higher than the 10K they are currently making on YouTube alone. And don't forget, this is not instead, but ideally on top of what they are already making on YouTube, because you could still broadcast, right? And the only thing that would be missing are the interactive features. So you couldn't, if you're viewing it on YouTube, you couldn't bid to join on the session, but you could still watch what's happening. In a way, this could become another part of the marketing funnel for the games industry, because if you don't own the game, your viewing experience is X. If you get the game, your viewing experience becomes X plus 1, right? So last point on this is the opportunity for the games companies themselves. Our data from that same survey talks about 30% of console gamers viewing games-related videos and 18% buying in-game products every month. So the back of the envelope estimate is that for a console game with 1 million monthly active users, there would be an addressable audience of about 300,000 viewers, of which 54,000 could convert to payment. And if the average payment, again, was just $1 per month, the game is looking at an addressable opportunity of $650,000 per year. Now, of course, if you are somebody like Call of Duty and have 100 million active users, that opportunity could be as big as $65 million annually before the revenue splits with the creators. So we know that there is demand that's likely to grow. We know the opportunity is significant for both games companies as well as creators to create incremental revenues. And for a lot of companies and creators, for all of these reasons, we believe this should be a no-brainer. However, things are rarely black and white, and that's the case with this idea too. So there are some types of games companies and some types of games video creators that are just slightly better suited for this opportunity than others. So I'd like to spend the final part of the presentation on going through some of these caveats and just explaining which companies and creators may be best suited for this. Let's take the suitability of games companies and their titles first. Because the opportunity is designed to boost engagement and in-game spending for games companies, having in-game spending purchasing infrastructure is absolutely a key requirement for games to be suitable for this. Now, beyond that, companies that have the ability to invest into the necessary infrastructure and partnerships to deploy this, and companies that can get there faster, will also have the upper hand. Larger companies that comprise multiple titles and have direct to consumer relationships, as we said, kind of Xbox or PlayStation, I believe they will be some of the best positioned to action this opportunity, and the upside will potentially be the largest for them. But it turns out there is probably a lot more companies in way of size that could tap into this opportunity, and we'll dive into that a little more during our panel. In terms of the actual games titles that would be most suitable, these will be titles where expertise is hard to obtain and expert tips and guidance is highly valued. For example, things like knowing what weapons work best for what type of battle mode in which map, etc., or what items should you get for your role-playing game's character. Essentially, expertise is going to be much more highly valued in this environment, as opposed to creators purely based on, let's say, their entertainment personas. Then in terms of genres, RPG, so role-playing games, actions, and first-person shooters and open world are the largest in terms of absolute number of games video viewers who play these games. But besides the overall numbers, I feel it is always useful to look at the ratio between genre preferences of gamers and games video viewers, because it shows us which games over-index, taking the popularity of each genre into account. And in that sense, we can see meaningful over-indexes not just for not just for RPG and open world, but also for things like simulator and puzzle. And this is actually particularly where that expertise, for example, could come in. In terms of creators and their suitability, the opportunity will be, I believe, most suitable for creators that specialize in just one or a few games, because they would then be best able to take the advantage out of the focus targeting dynamics we've spoken about. And then B, expert players, as we mentioned, whose key added value is teaching expertise and essentially passing knowledge rather than being an entertainment persona. They're likely to carry much more of a weight when recommending in-game items, and then they actually might have a lot more opportunity to be able to convert to sales effectively. And final point, on the creators, I guess, ideally, they shouldn't be specifically tied into an exclusive deal with a video platform, because obviously that would make it very difficult and complicated to entice them to actually join this type of initiative. So as you can see, this opportunity is actually geared towards the middle and tail end of the creator market rather than the few creator stars at the top, let's say. The approach can help creators that cover more niche games to find their audiences more effectively. And because also currently, one last point I was going to make on this, if you are a creator, a games video creator that covers particularly niche games, let's say on YouTube, you will kind of always be swimming against the tide of its algorithm, which promotes the most popular titles. More so than the niche titles. Okay. So I'm slowly starting to run up against time. So to wrap up before we move on to our chat with Phil and Sam, just a couple of sort of final implications and takeaways. The demand is there. So is the opportunity in terms of upside and incremental in-game revenues. And there is also the ability to mitigate any consequential risk, i.e. not going against the likes of YouTube or Twitch to make this work. This is an opportunity to unlock a whole new revenue channel for games companies and creators alike. And the time to action this, or at least to start thinking about how to action this, is certainly now. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the presentation part of the webinar. And as we set this up and bring up our lovely panelists, I just wanted to say that we're also going to open up our floor for questions from the audience, which we'll be answering at the end of the panel discussion. So if you just type them in the comment feed on whatever platform you're watching, they should get to us, no problem. And yeah, if we by any chance manage to run out of time, then of course we are always going to be happy to follow up by email with you. All right. And I see some familiar faces on the screen now. Fantastic. Okay. So without further ado, let me welcome our panelists. We've got Phil Ranta, who is the former head of creators at Facebook Gaming and currently the CEO of Wormhole Labs. Hi, Phil.
Hello, hello.
And we've got Sam Griffin, who recently joined MIDiA's content production team. But the reason he's on the panel with us today is that he's a Twitch Games video creator. Hi, Sam.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Great to have you both. Thanks for being with us. And so before we move on to the actual questions and the panel discussion, can you give our viewers sort of like a 30-second intro about your roles in the context of what we're talking about today? Phil, I guess let's start with you. Can you describe your former role at Facebook Gaming a bit and what it entailed?
Yeah, now I'm self-conscious because Sam's got such great bass in his microphone. I feel like I have an insufficient setup here. Yeah, my former role at Facebook Gaming was taking care of the game streaming community. So it was pretty cross-functional. It was working with product teams. It was working with the sales teams. It was working with the partnerships teams to try to develop the best roadmap to encourage people to stream on Facebook, to make sure that we're building something that's interesting for the ecosystem. We saw a ton of growth during that time. Some of that I think is ecosystem growth, but some of that is I thought we were doing a really good job getting people over. We signed such people as Disguised Toast and Ronda Rousey and a few others during that time. So, yeah, and then now I'm the CEO of a metaverse company, which now Facebook has started to do a little bit of a pivot to. So they're chasing me a bit.
Yeah, you left and they decided to rebrand, right?
Mark Zuckerberg was like, whatever Phil's doing, I'm going to do too, I'm sure.
Totally. No, thanks. That's great context. Thanks, Phil. And Sam, we've said you are a Twitch creator, but can you quickly describe just kind of where on that journey you are at the moment and what kind of things are you covering in your video content, etc.?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a content producer on Twitch. That's where I'm based primarily. I interact with my community around and through FPS games, so first-person shooters. So major titles like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Valorant, similar games like that. Also Rainbow Six Siege. I do also quite a bit of situational comedy stuff, so interacting with the community, trying to encourage a bit more personal development through gaming and creating a space that is not only comfortable, but is also progressive for a lot of people. In the gaming space, which isn't always something that people do. Yeah, we have a wide community from people varying of ages, all the way from 13 all the way up to 45. And yeah, I love it. It's an amazing space to be in.
Fantastic. Well, and that's actually, I'll probably stay with you, Sam, on this, because my next, well, I guess the first question really for the panel is, how is life for creators at the sort of mid to long tail of the market these days?
I mean, ultimately, it is a struggle. A lot of people spend ridiculous amounts of time working on their content, and the amount of time that you put into it doesn't always reflect financially in returns.
There is no sort of guarantee on how much you can make as a content producer on any platform, really, unless you're one of the top 5%, which I'm not, and so is a majority of a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people seem to be going down the rabbit hole when they're creating content and doing live broadcasts of committing to the grind, and end up burning out and actually not enjoying creating content, which is not the thing that you want. You want to be able to enjoy it, make a certain amount of money that you could classify as being successful, and enjoy building a community.
And it takes a while to get to that first point, doesn't it? Like as in you mentioned, yeah, there's so much sort of upfront, I guess, human capital you need to invest into making this happen, right? Like how long or how difficult, is it to even just get to see the first dollar kind of thing without, having to give us any secrets as to how much you're making, of course.
No, of course. I think when I first started streaming, I think I didn't make or have my first payout until maybe about 4 or 5 months in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it definitely does take quite a lot of commitment, and it's a bit of a shame, to be honest, that there aren't any other real sort of sources of income that you can get, especially as a small creator. You're not going to be visible on the radar for either like partnership deals or like creator affiliate codes and things like that. So it is a challenge, and it definitely, if there was some sort of a way that you can make money doing content creation and producing videos live or otherwise, it definitely would make a difference, because you could invest in your equipment, you can invest in better graphics, you can invest in an editor, you can do all these sort of things that would eventually help snowball your content and help produce a more vibrant community.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, Phil, I was going to come to you with this. We've heard it from the ground from a creator now, but does what Sam is saying, how does that resonate with you in way of what you've seen with creators at Facebook Gaming and how that life for creators sort of really is from your point of view?
Yeah, no, I mean, naturally Sam lived it, so I'm not going to say he's a liar, but no, I mean, it's really true. The hardest part about being a game streamer is that day one, there's a wonderful meme where somebody says what it's like to be a game streamer, and they show somebody saying, "Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in the stream." And then it cuts to it saying, people watching 0, and then a tear is falling down his cheek. I think that meme is like as true as it, because you have to act as if you're on a show and you're presenting to people. And sometimes the early days, especially the algorithms, don't like you when you're not getting a lot of heat, right? They're rich get richer algorithms. So especially Twitch's old algorithm that used to be literally, if you were the top viewed person in the top game, then you're in the top left, and then it worked its way down by viewership. That was the algorithm for a long time. So breaking out was very, very, very hard unless you were early on in there. But a lot of people do it for reasons other than trying to make a living out of it or being famous. A lot of people do it for the social aspects of it. And I think that TikTok also showed us the way of how valuable it is to give some people attention on upload number 1, right? I think YouTube, Twitch, Facebook could all learn from that. And that's really a big part of what Facebook did is, well, you can tie it into your existing accounts, and therefore friends and family that you already have from your Facebook account should be able to see your stream, so you don't have that cold start problem on the same way you might have with YouTube or Twitch. But it's still incredibly painful to be putting in all of that work, making $0 and having just mom or dad drop in and say, "You're doing great, sweetie," and then that's it, right? You want more attention than that. So
yeah,
so growth is a struggle.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really interesting. Both of you kind of use the words to break through, right? And there is this whole, I guess, concept that, or this kind of chasing the treasure in a way, right? That you're essentially, you need to do a whole lot of work, and you may or may not, most likely won't fully get there, right? Or you won't. Life is often curbing of one's expectations, as my good friend says. So the reason why I think that the idea we've just presented could actually help out with this issue is because it doesn't necessarily you don't need to amass a certain number of viewers before you can quote unquote break through, right? Because you can, to your point about the value from upload number 1, if you've got a destination where you can share your expertise, push some in-game purchases in doing so, you could be earning that value from that very first day potentially, right? Because it's incremental revenue, right? It's not a revenue somebody needs to sell advertising inventory against or whatever. Once somebody bought that loadout from you as a creator and the game got some money out of it, there is no reason not to share it kind of straight away, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to why do people watch, right? So if people are watching because there is random drops happening on Twitch where if you're watched, then you might get some coin or whatever, that's valuable. Some people are watching for entertainment. Some people are watching because they want to get better at the game. It's very hard to know which is which until you actually jump into a stream, unless they have an established brand, right? If you're watching Shroud, you know you're going to watch a great player. If you're watching Ninja, he's a good player, but I think you're there more for the entertainment. Or Dr. Disrespect, right? Good player, there for the entertainment. But if you had some sort of way to segment this where it's easier to niche down and view kind of games that are a little bit more passionate but not as big a games, or it's very clear that this person like has the best loadouts and you want to learn from that, and there's incentive to watch that. Any new discovery is great, because with any new discovery and any new algorithm, there's new ways to create content specifically for that. And right now we're just exceptionally limited. You almost need to be famous in order to get that breakout moment.
Absolutely. Which actually kind of brings me, it's a nice segue to our next point to discuss. And that's really, what type of creators do you guys think are best suited for the in-game video streaming opportunity that we presented? I mean, could this, unlock more sort of a direct targeting and audience opportunities for creators, like you say, who perhaps don't have the entertainment personas, but are, let's say, really good players? Or any thoughts you guys might want to weigh in on with here? Sam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. So I definitely say, we discussed it previously offline, but there's a difference between, you have highly skilled players and highly engaging personalities. And I say that there's always going to be the people who are on either end of those spectrum, either incredibly skillful at the game, or just have an amazing personality, and you go for them because they're funny, you go to them because they're engaging. A lot of these people are already quite established. It'd definitely be an opportunity for people who are either just starting out or just about to break through towards the next level of monetization on these different video platforms, because they already have an established brand, they already have an established community, and they'll be able to navigate the space as someone who is driven to get to the next stage. As well as those who are just starting out, they might be a little bit more encouraged to see, okay, well, I know this creator I've watched for X number of years is pursuing this option for monetization through this game that I watch consistently with them. Why don't I give this a try as well?
Yeah, and I think it poses a huge opportunity for core esports players, because this is always a fun game. Go and after an esports tournament, look up every single player, go to their Twitch and see how many concurrents they get. There are people who are best of market at some games who will get 20 concurrents, 30 concurrents. 40. It's a shame. They literally grind 18 hours a day on one video game to be as good as possible. However, sometimes that's not super engaging because they don't talk when they play, right? Esports players are heads down focused. They're looking at how to get a microsecond faster or a microsecond better, right? So I think that in-game is awesome for who's just incredibly skilled. And I think it is really valuable for the people who aren't playing the biggest games. I'm a retro gamer. If I didn't have the blur behind me, you'd see all of my 8-bit Nintendo stuff behind me. It's making a huge comeback, all retro gaming. We're hitting that 25-year nostalgia cycle really hard. And I think for people who are playing more kind of independent games and vintage games, and there's still marketplaces for that, I think it poses a wonderful opportunity to help those communities find these streamers.
No, absolutely. And so that's actually certainly a point I want to pick up on a little more as we talk about like the types of games companies this is also suitable to, because I completely agree with your point, Phil, on the sort of retro games and generally games that are just a little more niche, that aren't like the sort of, top 10 of the charts these days. I think absolutely there is a big opportunity there. To your point, Sam, about the sort of the quadrant and the entertainment personas versus the experts. We know, I mean, that there are already businesses that are popping up that are essentially catering to that need, right? For experts, like you can now go onto platforms like whatever WeCoach or Gamer Sensei or whatever, and you can buy lessons, right, with these people. So we know that demand, to your point, Phil, is basically largely there. To me, that platform or that feature not being a part of the game directly it's basically leaving money on the table, right? Because all of these companies like the WeCoach, Gamer Sensei, etc., they still have to work hard to build that audience and bring it up, right? They have all of these pros, but they don't have, millions of people just going to the website every day. So at that point, you still do have that, is there going to be any audience there? If you take it into the game, no creator ever has to be worried about not hitting the audience inside the game, right? So yeah, I mean, and to kind of move along on the topics, and we can pick it up further from the retro games that you've spoken about, Phil. Which types of games companies do you guys think are best positioned to action this opportunity? So we obviously said that there is, I guess, an upside for the big ones, as it typically happens in life. But when we were talking about this a couple of days ago, Phil, you mentioned, I thought what I thought was a really interesting point around that this could actually be an opportunity for companies across the size spectrum, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially as the free-to-play movement continues going on, the play-to-earn movement is starting to grow. Games that make their money based around consistent usage instead of ones that are like console games where you pay your $50 and then that's kind of it. This poses a huge opportunity because these games are not building for how do I get incredible first 2-month sales and then I become a PlayStation classic and then I sell it as much as I can and yada yada and then it's gone. Instead, you're saying, how do I make sure that I'm promoting every season? How do I make sure I'm promoting my microtransactions and my new skins and everything else? So I see this as a huge opportunity for mobile games too, right? Like a lot of gamers, it's the deep dark secret of theirs. But yes, they play their PC games. They get really good at them. But when they're waiting in line for the bank, they might be busting out, the Marvel Superheroes mobile game or something on Apple Arcade. And that stuff becomes valuable as well to kind of be able to tune in. So, yeah, I think it crosses the spectrum. As long as the barrier to entry is reasonably low or at least fair based on the viewership or usage, I think that everyone could benefit.
Absolutely. I think you might be onto something there actually with the mobile games and as well with the puzzle games. Because when I was looking at the genre over indexes, I was actually a little bit surprised almost that puzzle games actually over-indexed on games video viewers. But to your point, exactly, these people are playing Call of Duty or GTA or Fortnite, whatever it may be. But at some point, they're gonna be waiting at the bus stop.
If you look outside of westernized countries, it's a lot of mobile gaming, right? Like that's when you're starting to say like PUBG Mobile is still the dominant game in Indonesia, the Philippines, right? Like these are incredible opportunities, and mobile gaming, even though it has not gotten there stateside, UK, etc., yet there are incredibly high-powered devices starting to come out and incredibly high-powered games starting to come out. It's going to keep happening more and more, so we might as well prepare for that future.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, sorry, did you want to come in on this or not really? I wasn't sure.
I think everything's been said, to be honest. It's interesting about the mobile games. I 100% agree, but I don't have too much to add. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think I'll stick with you though for the next question. I think any product ideas that you guys think would work for creators and games companies alike in this kind of framework. I mean, we've mentioned a bunch of examples, and really this is not to sort of give the silver bullet solution, but is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that you think could actually work within this framework in way of products and features?
I think sort of Phil touched on it earlier was about esports. One thing that I noticed recently when I was watching the ALGS, if any of you guys are in the audience watch the ALGS, which is the Apex Pro League, they were actively encouraging people to use a tool called Multiview, which is where you can watch multiple broadcasts at the same time. I think if you are able to take something similar to that, which is done through these games companies, and you're allowed to help people promote their own teams. Like I know a lot of teams have skins in Call of Duty, or they have skins in Rainbow Six Siege. you could help create a playlist of specific creators that you wanted to watch each week, and these game companies would be able to push each of these like coaching materials through, or like the specific merchandise or specific skins or specific tokens or whichever it is for each particular game. They could help push these forwards for these other organizations. Be a great opportunity to not only help these creators who are playing as well get a little bit more coverage, but also be a great way for them to make a little bit more money.
Yeah, I mean, we could really pitch feature set on this all day, because there's a lot of meat on this bone. But I think where it becomes really valuable is the getting to understand the context of what the gamer needs at that moment, and then being able to have really smart curation around it, right? Sometimes they want tips. Sometimes they want to see somebody flying through a level. Sometimes they want to see a loadout. Sometimes they just want to see like tip of the day or a narrate, right? Like sometimes they don't know what they want until they see it, but they know what kind of area of what they want is. So the more it can be curated, easy, and giving people what they want before they need it, it's a huge win.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you say that we could be riffing on features all day here, because I mean, one of the things, that I think is important here is for us to communicate an idea, and we do a lot of that at MIDiA. The other thing is always, connect that idea with reality, right? And actually how to execute on some of these things. And absolutely, there will be, I guess, as many ways to execute this as there are, individual games. And so yeah, that's certainly something, by the way, if anyone in the audience is something you guys want to sort of, let's say, follow up on this for your particular case, absolutely feel free to get in touch. And I'm sure Sion will share the details with everyone towards the end of the presentation. So little cheeky plug there. And next topic, or question rather, what happens like if games companies, because games companies are busy and they've got offers coming in from left, right, and center, everyone wants to partner with companies, they're receiving through massive stacks of proposals and everything. So if this just kind of falls through the cracks, and games companies say, yeah, this is interesting, but it's not something we're going to look at right now, is there actually a risk that at some point the actual video platforms will be able to get much closer to that interactive type of offering that we're talking about? As things like, I'm seeing things like playable NFTs coming on, right? Like at the moment, yes, I can't buy the, I don't know, AK-47 in Call of Duty and then use it elsewhere. But if I could buy an NFT on YouTube or Twitch that was AK-47, and if you pay X, you can use it in 2 games, and if you pay a little more, you can use it in all the games you've got that can read that NFT or whatever. Like, is there, sorry, I'm rambling here a little bit, is there a window of opportunity here that is going to close if the games companies don't actually action this? And is it technologically possible for the video companies to eat their lunch, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a simple answer, yeah. I mean, look, all these video platforms, as much as possible, are looking for how do we get our content in front of as many people as possible, and how do we deliver as much impact and value as possible so people pay more money, right? That is the economics that drives all of these engines. So if YouTube or Twitch can start putting themselves in popular games and getting some sort of monetization out of it, I'm sure it's already being explored, and I'm sure it's already deep. However, a lot of these companies move slow, right? The bigger the company you have, the slower you are. It's a reason why dorm room startups are still exploding all over the place. It's because they're able to see a blue water opportunity and run it at a specific thing faster than a Google or a Meta or even like Snap these days, even though not too long ago it was a dorm room startup, right? So I think that the goal is not, well, what's the competitive set and how do they crush us, but how do we introduce this concept to people, start rolling deals, start getting it together now and proving out value. And then if the big guys want to catch up, they either have to buy you or they have to fight against you. And it's really hard to play from behind, even if you're a monster big company.
I have to agree. I mean, saying that it's, well, when is it going to happen? It's already happened and already happening. So I don't know if you guys know, you've already mentioned Phil earlier about Dr. Disrespect and about his Midnight Society. Yesterday, they literally released something saying that they were going to be doing 10,000 early access NFTs and like founders passes. So it's already happening. People are already engaging, or game studios are already engaging with the options or the opportunities for monetization and like community-based, almost like trading. We've also seen it with CSGO as well in the past with the value of skins. But I think we've got to be a little bit careful with how the word NFTs are used at the moment, because people might not actually know what the value of the actual items are until a lot later in the future, and it could create quite a bit of tension within the community, and hopefully continues down a path that is positive for a lot of these game studios. And I think this is going to be a company to sort of keep our eyes on, is Midnight Studio.
That was such a nice way to talk about NFTs in gaming right now, which is, I've said, some of the most royal draggings I've ever seen on Twitter from gaming companies.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, I mean, are there any other examples? I mean, you've basically answered my next question, Sam, which is great. I mean, are there any other companies, games companies in particular, guys, that we know of that actually are already building up some sort of in-house video creator capabilities? Because to me, it's just mind-boggling that this isn't a lot further down the line at this point, because the data on everything around it is just so clear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fair amount of game companies have their in-house streamers, but a lot of those aren't popping, right? Because the issue is, how do you compete with an open market where there's millions of streamers? How are you the most entertaining out of all of those? That's really, really hard, right? Unless you find somebody like Tim the Tapman and just pay $20 million a year and hire them. But even then, he'd probably say no, because he realizes how impressive his independent brand is. But yeah, I mean, pretty much every company, from small gaming companies to larger ones, have a YouTube channel, a Twitch streamer in-house. It might be an intern, but they're doing it. I think the bigger question is, how do you tie that content to the core game? Because for most of them, the core game is popular, and the streamer's like, yeah, they're like, on announcement day, they're doing great, but when it's not announcement day, maybe not a lot of people are watching them. If you can start tying those things together, then that's where the real value is.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, I guess, hopefully that's where a lot of that opportunity is to sort of bring that initiative in-house. Because yeah, I agree, you know, lots of game companies work with video influencers and they are using them for that marketing value, but it's a marketing cost, really, right? It's not something that's so if you can, you know, optimize the marketing cost by deploying this opportunity, but also create some incremental revenue on top, sounds like gravy to me.
That's the goal.
Cool. Well, guys, I think this kind of concludes the topics. I actually do have one very last question for you, just, I guess, like a quick yes or no and a brief why, if you can. Will we see this opportunity truly take off in the next year or two? Or is it going to take more time? Or is it just not going to happen?
I think we will. I think it's too big of an opportunity for people to let up. And at the end of the day, these games companies and creators alike, they want to make money. And it's a step in the right direction. NFTs, crypto, a lot of the digital monetization strategies that are being put into place today, generally, it would seem like it'd be a huge missed opportunity if games companies didn't follow suit in some aspect or other.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that everyone's going to tread carefully and they're going to test the waters very carefully. But I feel like the storytelling around crypto and NFTs has been poor to a mass market. And once that gets cleaned up and people really understand that it's not a money grab, it's not just people buying JPEGs, it's not, you know, once they really focus on utility and the value of ownership and what it means and make it super easy to do, then it's bound to take off soon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, guys. This has been really enjoyable, actually. Not that I wasn't expecting it to be.
You sound surprised.
We're not horrible, were we?
No, it was great. Thank you so much. I'm just looking through our comments here, whether I think we might have a couple of minutes for some questions. If not, we might follow up. So I do see a question from Christopher Hauer. But Christopher, if you are still with us, it would be great if you could rephrase the question, because I think so. Christopher is asking, where do you throw MOBA games or these hybrid? Oh well, you put it up. Thank you, Sion. So this is the question. I am not fully sure I understand the wording of it. Unless you guys do, we'll ask Christopher to sort of rephrase. But his first message was, I've noticed this. I tried streaming for a short time, but realized I didn't have the personality to entertain and focus at the same time. So I'm really excited to know more. So I guess with regards to particular games formats, etc., while we give Chris a chance to rephrase if he needs to, Sam and Phil, are there specific genres or games formats where you think that sort of the entertainment personality is just a lot more or a lot less important than the skill? So I can understand, the skill set really key in an FPS game, right? Or in an RPG game. What are the bits where that bode better with entertainment versus the skill set?
First of all, it depends on the environment that they're in. So if they're in a professional environment, as in like a professional esports competition, they're not going to engage or be as they're not going to be as engaging as other people may have been if they're not in a high stakes $100,000 Call of Duty tournament, for example. And yeah, it sort of depends on their personality as a general. So if they feel like they're going to be able to engage with their community, goes back to that high skill, high personality, sort of where do they sit? And that's like sort of the be all and end all, is where do they sit on there is going to be how they end up engaging with their community. They could be playing an FPS game and be the most skillful person, but they might not engage with their community. Or they could be playing something like, I don't know, Cooking Mama, or like a mobile game. They could be playing like Clash of Clans or Clash Royale, whichever. It really just depends, I think, on a creator by creator basis.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, if you're entertaining, it doesn't really matter what you're playing, right? There's a lot of variety streamers out there that are playing Goat Simulator and whatever funny thing is happening right now. And it doesn't matter if you're playing a core esports game or you're playing a down market game, people are there for you. So there's a lot of power there. If you're looking for people who are pure skill, generally you're looking at popular esports games. You're looking at popular games generally because like new God of War comes out, people are looking to get as good as possible quickly. Yes, it's a little bit of a flash in the pan because it's not an esport, so people play it till they beat it and then they're done. But while they're playing it till they beat it, they want to get as good as possible. So you'll see those jumps. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's important to try to be as entertaining as you can. And if you just want to be a core, I'm good at this game, so watch me, it has to be some sort of ongoing esport type of title.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, guys. Unless there are any other questions, I'm just sort of looking through. I think we are just about hitting the end of the session. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'm going to hand over back to Sion, who will tell you a little bit about how we'll follow up with you and how you can get in touch, etc. So Sam and Phil, thanks again. You've been great.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and staying with us as well. So yeah, if you'd like to have the slides that was presented today, it will be on our website on MIDiaresearch.com. And for those of you who have registered to be here, you'll get an email for it as well. If you haven't, you can still go to MIDiaresearch.com/webinar and still enter your email in so that you can get an email for it as well. So thank you again so much for joining, and we will see you later.